Hey everyone, welcome to Code Arsenal. My name is Sunil and I am your host in this series. This series will be a fun ride through the latest and greatest of software development ecosystem. So, you might be a student, a professional, or just a technology enthusiast, and you might have a lot of questions in your mind regarding software and the whole software industry. Depending on where you are, depending on your current position, you might think, which programming language should I learn? And there could be heaps of other questions like product company or service company, full-time job or a contract job, individual contributor or a team player, a day in the life of a software engineer. How does that look like? And more importantly, how does that feel like? What is the difference between a programmer, a software developer, and a software engineer? We will go through the tools of the trade, popular and emerging technology stacks, and some of the concepts that you must grasp in order to progress in your career. We'll keep it to the point, focus on what's important, and leave the rest aside. I wouldn't call this a secret sauce or a magic pill, but I'm sure I can help you set your course straight. I can set you on a journey to learn and master the art of software development. I think this is the best time to be alive, where you can travel around the world and work from anywhere in the world. I've been fortunate to work from the Asia Pacific, Australia, and the United States. So right now I'm talking to you from Australia if you're curious. A bit about myself. I have more than 12 years of experience in software industry. I've worked with some of the leading companies in the world in domains like imaging and printing, semiconductors, application modernization, and so forth. In the upcoming episodes, we'll talk about people side of things like roles and responsibilities and career progression. We'll also look at some of the ways people collaborate with each other in the software industry and some of the processes that are involved. I want you to get a sense of how it all fits together, and the best way to do that is through examples. So I will take you through live debugging and troubleshooting, deployment, testing, and running the code and seeing how it works. And definitely we are going to pick some real world examples for all of this so that you can relate what we're talking about to things that are really out there in the real world. One brick at a time. We'll build something each episode, and eventually we'll have software as a service hosted in the cloud that'll have a few interfaces like a mobile app, a web interface, and a Windows-based client. Don't worry too much about the buzzwords and the jargon. I'm here to help you out. Most importantly, all of this will be open source on GitHub. You can check out the code and participate. Let's build this thing together. How does that sound? Well, as you can see here, there are several dots to connect. In each episode, we will pick one or two and drill down to the details. So, in this episode, which also happens to be the introduction to the whole series, we'll talk about Git, G-I-T, Git. So Git is a distributed version control software that allows people to collaborate on software projects. Git can be used for private or public repositories. Sometimes they are called code bases. Well, the first step to participate in open source community is to create an account on github.com. So head on to github.com, create your account. You'll have to sign up if you're a first-time user, and then you'll be able to see all the repositories in GitHub. Okay, so let's take an example of one of the open source repositories. If I go to Atom, which is an open source editor, as you can see, there are several folders and files inside that. There is an about section, and there are several releases and a list of contributors, 445 contributors to this project. And I think that's a pretty active repository at this time, with several thousands of commits and 174 pull requests in flight. So this tab, code, would show you all the code files, and we can look at master branch, which is the master copy of the code, or several branches of code. Let's also look at some of the pull requests. So people raise a pull request with their changes, and then the maintainers of this repository either approve them or reject them, and then eventually the code becomes part of the master branch if it is approved. The next step to do would be to download Git. You can head over to git-scm.com. Download this Git client for Windows. The next thing you'll need to install is Visual Studio Code. Okay, time to check out the repository that I was talking about. So here it is. It's called Sunil Sydney /code arsenal. Let's see how we can make a modification to this repository or create the first pull request without even checking out the code to a local repository. The easiest way you can create a pull request on GitHub is through this interface to edit the readme.md. So go ahead and click this button, edit it using web interface, and then there are two options. We can either commit directly to master or create a branch for this commit and start a pull request. Depending on the policy, some repositories may not allow you to directly commit to master. So let's take this example of creating a new branch for this change and then propose the change. So we are taken to this screen with two options to create a pull request or create a draft pull request. I'm going to click create pull request. Alright, so there is only one participant in this repository so far, and I happen to be the administrator of this repository, so I get this special message. As an administrator, you may still merge this pull request. But in real life, if there are multiple participants, some of them would be maintainers, and they can review, approve, and then decide to merge. So at this stage, I guess I would really encourage you to try this workflow of creating a pull request and submitting the pull request. I will look at some of the good pull requests and then approve them. So that will be a good stepping stone into working in the open source community. The real way of working with this code would be to check out this code to a local repository. Earlier there was an option to open with Visual Studio Code right here in this web interface. It's been changed. So instead we'll copy this URL from here, head over to Visual Studio Code, which is a free editor, click on clone repository, and the next thing to do is to provide the URL we just copied from GitHub. Would you like to open the clone repository? I said yes. There is this readme.md that we just saw from the web interface, and these are the code files. So this one is a .NET Core project written in C#. Let's make a modification and see how we can make a pull request. So I've saved this one, cd, and then say .NET run. Cool. So we get this nice little message that we updated. What I'm trying to show here is how to make a pull request of this change. This would show the files that have been changed. In this example, we only modified a single file, program.cs. Now it shows an option to add a commit message and then commit on to master. But what we want to do is we want to cut a new branch for this change and make a pull request out of it. So there are a few ways to do that. So from the UI, we can go this way, create branch from, and we just need to provide a branch name here. I would say feature branch 1. Create this from, I'm gonna choose master. There you go. So right now we are working on this branch called feature branch 1, and I will make a commit message something like this: improve greeting message. This tick box is commit. It would say there are no stage changes to commit. Would you like to automatically stage all your changes and commit them directly? We can either say yes here, or the other option is to stage the changes first. So I've staged these changes. Now they are ready to be committed. The next thing to do will be to publish this branch. So right now the changes are only on this local machine. We want to publish these changes to the remote repository so that other people can have a look at the changes. So let's try this option to push. So this says this has no upstream branch. Would you like to publish this branch first? Click OK. Cool. So that has been pushed to the remote branch. So let's go back to the GitHub and see how this shows up here. Click on branches. It should show 4 different branches, and the one we created right now is this one, feature branch 1. Let's create a pull request. Click on new pull request. Click here. For this demo, I'm gonna merge the pull request right here. I'll have to use administrator privileges to merge this pull request at this stage because there are no reviewers yet, and I'm confirming the merge. Now if I go back to the code and look at what's on master branch, here we can see the improved greeting message. So if you're new to Git and new to GitHub, don't feel frightened by all these various options that are available here. Start with a pretty simple workflow. There are several ways to do these operations. Some people prefer command line, some people use this UI, or some people use the Git UI and Git bash. So depending on which tool you are comfortable with, pick a workflow and raise your first pull request today. So Git is sophisticated, as you can imagine, and we have only looked at what's the bare minimum that we need to keep going. If you're interested to learn more about Git, please let me know in the comments below, and I will do a separate video focusing entirely on Git. I really encourage you to participate and raise a pull request on this repository. You can see the links on the description section below. I really encourage you raise a pull request, and you know what? Pull requests are arguably the best way to communicate with another developer. So that's the clearest way you can convey your ideas and concepts to another engineer. Even though diagrams are good at explaining things at a high level, when it comes to the technical details, nothing beats a pull request. Another thing to note is there are several roles in software companies, like an associate engineer, software engineer, senior software engineer, staff engineer, and principal engineer, team lead, tech lead, manager, team manager, section manager, directors, vice presidents, CTO. So it's really important to know what each of these mean and what are their roles and responsibilities, so that you can set your short-term and long-term goals more effectively. In the upcoming episodes, we will go through some of the process side of things. Processes like waterfall, agile, Kanban, Scrum, Scrumban, extreme programming, you name it. So the world is changing faster than ever, and technology is leading the race. So we can either be spectators of the change or be part of it. So it has become very evident that embracing change is the only way you can survive in this. This is applicable for individuals and organizations. So there is a big emphasis on agility these days. to be able to pivot if we find our decisions were wrong, to move to new territories, and to develop and deploy things faster and quicker. So, as I said before, we'll build one thing at a time in each episode, and eventually we will have a software as a service hosted on the cloud that'll have so many bells and whistles. And we'll make sure the software that we build have some of the characteristics like scalability, extensibility, and observability. So the jargon overdose is probably because of the fact that this is the first episode and I have to explain things at a higher level. And when we go deep, when we do a deep dive into the topics, we will make sure we stay away from the jargons as much as possible. I really hope you found this video useful. Go ahead and subscribe to my channel to stay in the loop. I'll be releasing every week from now. If you're not already part of the open source community, probably today is the best day to do that. So go ahead and join the repository. The next big thing might come from you. You never know until you try. Well, thanks for watching. You have a good day and